This is our baby tears basin. The pearlweed is working. If something is working, do more of it. Pearlweed's rolling fine. Moving on to baby tears. Both are type of Macranthus species. However, the way I set this up is the way I set up my own aquariums in your house, so this is how you can learn from it. I use dirt. God made dirt. Dirt don't hurt. So what we're doing here is we have a heavily dirted substrate here. I used Miracle-Gro Organic Choice. We rinse dried, added a bunch of clay, and then we capped this with paver sand, not play sand. Pool filter sand would have also worked. We're having good success with paver sand. Paver sand number 2 to be exact. It's the pink bag, about 6 bags of this. However, I'm trying to grow baby tears, but the plant mass is not high enough. Around here we have a rule, it's very simple, the 75% rule. Make sure your aquarium or your space where you're growing plants is at least 75% full of plants. When you're initially planting this, you're nowhere near 75% full of plants. Answer: fast growing floating plant. The fast growing floating plant we have here is our friend Mr. Red Root Floaters. The red root floaters will turn red when they are nutrient deprived. Guess what? They're not nutrient deprived yet. So what I'm doing here is I'm using the red root floaters. The floating plants are kind of my balance, kind of my leverage act. I have hardly any floating plants over in the pearlweed because that is a chocked full basin right here. With the baby tears, I am just now getting this rolling. So I want to have my red root floater production going on in here. And then to remove it, it's very simple. I just take them out as needed. But I've got all of this great above water plant. Again, above water plants absorb readily the CO2 in the air and they readily available light. So they kind of shade things out. So this plant right here is my neutralizer while I have this heavy nutrient rich substrate going on here. Now, there are a couple of pockets of algae, which means I'm slightly off balance, but here's where it's fun for me with this setup. I learned this the hard way, by the way. The pearlweed basin was not always beautiful. I had a ridiculous amount of algae out of the start. But what I do here is I can remove all of this, no problem. I'm just gonna throw this out, but I've got a method here to eliminate this. When you see algae like this, that means Dustin cut back on the fertilizer. We're only using a little bit of fertilizer early on. I want to show this right here. This is how I can clean this out quickly and then reset it, if you will. So what happens early on, and this happens in your dirt aquariums, and this happens in your newly set up aquariums, is you have too much nutrients in the water column. And I've got above us almost full sun. It's like driving a Porsche on a curvy road. It's a lot of fun, but if you mess up, you're in a lot of trouble. Same deal here. So what you want to do is you want to figure out a way to get all the nutrients out of here. So I added a little fertilizer, a little too much, and I also removed some of the red root floaters. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to reset it. Now you can't do this in your aquariums as easily. You have to do a water change. I've got this set up like this. Now normally this will run down here. If you come down here, this is going to flow quickly. I take this, Andrew, it's coming towards you. And I'm going to take this around and I'm going to aim it out of the aquarium. And that's running out of the aquarium now. And then I can watch above here, all of this runs through. Okay, so now I'm going to stir this up just a little bit to get any of the like extra dirt that's floating on top or any of the algae. All that's leaving the basin. So we're just sending that on out of here onto the floor of the greenhouse and probably Andrew's feet. That's the trick. It's a balancing act because as the plants grow, they're going to consume more. Right now, I got just a tiny bit off balance, and I'm actually, for the most part, considering this is a 4x8 basin, I've only got like one little pocket of algae, so I'm actually feeling pretty good about how balanced this is. I'm going to add a little bit more of the red root floaters into this to absorb that waste once I suck all of this out here. So this is just going to pull all this out, going to run it to dry, and then I'm going to refill with our wonderful tap water. So then this water right here is going to go into here and then it's pumped slowly into this by this little pump down here. Shout outs, by the way, to Seachem. They're actually making a pretty solid little pump right now. But this little pump right here, clear this off, get a little more water flow going, spray that off, and run this on through. So now I'll have more water flow. This water down here is not getting tarnished by all the water coming out of there, and it's slowly gonna fill this back up. So I'm gonna let this all the way drain, put the top back in, raise it up 3 inches, and this will all be relatively fresh water coming in. Super excited about the baby tears production.